this is Dominic, wedding DJ.
And this is Serena, wedding planner.
And together we are the Wedding Duo. We are here to talk all things weddings.
Planning a wedding can be stressful, but we are here to help.
So before you say, that's it, we're going to Vegas, don't go to Vegas.
Let's have some fun.
Join us as we answer your wedding questions and help navigate planning one of the biggest days of your life with the Wedding Duo. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Wedding Duo podcast.
This is going to be riveting. Are you ready? So we are here.
I feel like we've set these high expectations now. I hope we can perform.
I was kind of being sarcastic, but
it could be riveting. We'll shoot for riveting. Okay.
Aren't all our episodes riveting?
Well, in my head, they always come out like,
yes.
And now,
the Wedding Duo. Here we are. So one thing I want to mention first, if you're watching this episode on YouTube, I'm not wearing any makeup. I'm in like my yoga pants and all casual. And there's a reason for that. And it has to do with this week's episode.
I'm not wearing any makeup either.
Oh,
no
dear.
Yoga pants, though. Sorry to disappoint. We're very matchy today. I don't know. I didn't realize.
That is true. We're both wearing the blue
shirts. You've got the
shirts.
TikTok merch. I'm just a plain old
It's very
t-shirt.
Cute. So the reason for all of that was we did a wedding fair yesterday.
We did.
And I'm still recovering because as much as weddings exhaust me, wedding fairs are about the same.
And I don't want to hear about it because I had a wedding the night before and then got up and went to the wedding fair. And this was one of those, somebody asked me at the wedding fair yesterday, hey, what's your favorite venue? Because we talked to a lot of couples that don't even have a date or a venue. They just got engaged. This is their first. This is why we're talking about it today. But we didn't even
announce the subject of the podcast. So that is the subject of today's podcast is we're going to talk about
it, but you're right. You didn't say it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to talk about going to wedding fairs, going to open houses, what you can gain from them, what questions you might want to ask.
What to expect. Yeah.
What to expect.
But anyway, people ask, hey, what's your favorite venue? Because that's a very common topic. And in my head, I want to say, oh, there's this one in town where I get to park right behind the stage. There's a door I open up. It's like 3 steps to load in and unload my gear.
Care.
I can leave my car there, but that's not what they're asking.
No,
they're not. But my Saturday event, which is why I was so tired, it was the opposite of that. I had to park very far. There was no, it wasn't, I was dragging it through grass. So it's like it's like I'm back in football practice with the hip sled, like, come on, go, dig in deep, push.
But the couples want our perspective on other things about the venue, not necessarily how close you get to park.
Exactly.
You know, and that's why you go to these things, right? So it's engagement season currently. And there are a lot of, wherever you are, probably wedding fairs. And what those are the bigger convention style fairs where vendors pay to set up a booth and you come in, maybe you have to buy a ticket and they're there for a couple of hours and everyone's really basically trying to sell you their services. It is a great opportunity, even though we'll get into how it can be overwhelming. It is a great opportunity to see a lot of wedding stuff in one spot and get ideas.
Yeah, and that's one. You'll see. The thing is, I think the biggest thing you see is you see a lot more people at those wedding fairs. If you go down to the local convention center, like you said, look at their schedule. When's it coming up? It's usually January, February. Every town has one. All the big towns have one. But there's a lot more people at those things. There's a lot of variety is one main thing, right?
Absolutely.
But you see a lot of the really cute things, but you also see a lot of different experience level. There's people that are just starting out, and there's like, I'm trying to get established. And there's the veterans, the long tooth veterans like us. We've been doing this a long time.
And there's nothing wrong with either one, right? We're not saying one's wrong or right, but you'll just get a feel for price differences or experience levels. But the great thing is you get a chance to actually talk to the people, right? Sure. And ask them questions there directly, get a vibe for their energy, especially if you're like a DJ, that kind of a thing. If you're looking for like floral or decor, you get to see some of their work. So that is a really
see their style too.
Yeah, that is a really great advantage of going to these.
So this is what I would say. You'll go in and you'll talk to, how many DJs were there yesterday?
8, probably.
8. So, and the DJ, people always ask, how do you book a DJ? Because the photographer has a portfolio, the caterers have tasting, the cake, you can taste your cake there, which is also, that's a good way if you're trying to get your man to come with you. It's usually during football season.
You can get
there's drinks, there's bar. That's your girls. Your girls will come with you. But there's cake tasting everywhere. There's food and barbecue. You can taste the caterers. But a DJ, how do you gauge your DJ, right? Because Love Shack sounds the same if I play than if you play, right? So what are you doing different? But it is, you want to kind of get a vibe, see if you guys are vibing and see if it's a good personality match. That's one thing. So it's great. There's 8 DJs there. You can take a lap in a couple hours, have several conversations and say, who was that other guy down at the end or that girl down at the end? We really clicked with them, right?
Right.
They were feeling us, we were vibing. That's the kind of person usually like, okay. And that's a huge advantage of going to like a wedding fair, right?
The funny thing is though, as we're talking about this, you're probably the anxiety level is going up for you and you haven't even gone to this fair yet, but
that's the other side of it, right?
That's the other side. So it's overwhelming. It is absolutely a lot of information. It's a lot of energy coming from these vendors because think of it from their perspective. They paid to be there. So they are trying to make their money back. I'm not saying that they're being like rude or anything, but they're trying to.
What it is.
Yeah, it's a business.
And some people, this is their hobby. And so they don't like, it's not like they're 9 to 5 because you get a lot of those people too. Not the people that started out and they're trying to get into this business, but they still need the bennies from the other job, right?
Right.
So
we did that initially.
So the money is hard to come by. So they're trying to, how many weddings do I have to book to
go full
break
time.
even, or whatever it is. So that's an aspect that some people don't realize when they come in. Everybody's like, are you looking for DJ? Are you looking for floors? And you're like, whoa. And it like, that's what you walk into. And eventually people just walk around with their little totes that they were given, open up, just drop the paraphernalia in the bag.
Yeah, because they don't want to have any more conversations.
Yeah, they're afraid to make eye contact even.
Yeah. So go in with that in mind, that it is an experience and people are going to be trying to sell you stuff. Most people are very friendly about it. And if you say, no, I'm not interested or I'm not looking for that, they'll back off. So,
or your way out is, oh, I've already got a DJ. And they're like, oh.
I wonder how many times we've been lied to though.
Yeah, right. Or they're like, because that's great. If you already have, like you're going in, I need a cake and I need a photo booth. Like those are great for that because you're going to be a lot there. And you can tell everybody else, like, plus you've already probably pretty well on your way to booking your wedding. But for those of you that are like, oh, I just got the ring. Hey, everybody's in town. My girls are in town. I'm going to call my mom. I'm going to call his mom if you have if that's the genders involved. And you just go out and then you get there and you're just like, oh my God, it's a lot. And it just blows your hair back.
Yeah.
It could blow my hair back, which is not easy to do.
No, because there's not any of it.
There's your dad hair joke. I try to squeeze one in on every episode.
Oh, Lord. So the thing about what questions to ask, right? So when you go into the shows, price is usually a thing for most people, right? So sometimes it's good to ask for like show specials because a lot of us will offer some type of discount just for finding us there at the show. So that's something that you may want to mention to the vendors. If you're super interested and you like bonded and you're going, I think this is the person I'm going to book. Hey, I met you at the show. Do you offer a show special? Some people don't, some people do. So it's something to consider. You're going to want to go in with availability in your mind, right? Meaning if you haven't booked your venue yet, right? You don't necessarily have a date. So it can be harder to book some vendors or nearly impossible in our case, because we're not going to book you if you don't have a date, right? Because we're making a promise we don't know if we can keep.
And most couples, they may know that, but they may not know that. Like so this is our date. But like she said, if you don't have a venue, you don't have a date. So, but that's something you want to be very clear with your vendors that you're talking to, because even if you say, here's our date, but you haven't booked anything yet, like we may tell you, oh, we're already booked. And then even though you don't have that date, but the opposite of it is you say, here's our date. And we start talking about it and then you're not even sure. And then you go talk to a venue and they say, well, here's the dates we have available.
And you move it.
And then it's not that date anymore. And that's usually what will happen because you want to go in with a range, right? Like we're looking at the fall of next year. We're looking at the spring, or we want to do November. That's what we hope for. But then you'll get to the venue and they'll say, well, I have a couple Sundays in November, but there's no Saturdays because Saturdays will always go first. But if you're 18 months out, the availability is going to be more than we're trying to do it in 3 months. Because we talked to people from both ranges, right?
Right.
Kylie booked somebody yesterday, one of the planners we work with, she came up to me like, do you have availability on April 29th? And I go, this April 29th? I go, no, like all of the DJs were maxed out on that date. And she was like, well, they just booked it. They met it was very cute. They were in their 70s. They met on eHarmony.
Oh my goodness.
Is that still a thing?
Adorable.
But it was very cute. And they just want, they're obviously not inviting the fraternity and the sorority girl maybe, but I was like, unfortunately we're booked up on that date, but it was very was a very cute conversation that's happening too out there.
Yeah, you went off on a total tangent with that.
It's a fun
That's okay.
tangent to go.
So another thing you're going to want to talk to these vendors about is, are you the salesperson or are you the people that are going to actually show up on my wedding day? And it matters for certain vendors more than others, right? So if you're talking about like flowers, decor, any type of setup type pieces, it doesn't really matter who's dropping them off and setting them up, right? You're not going to interact with that personality. But if you're talking about your planner or your DJ,
the warehouse guys aren't going to be out there trying to. We don't want their, sometimes.
Yeah, it depends on who, how their business is set up. But
yeah, sure.
That's what you want to gauge too. Like sometimes they have salespeople at these events, and you don't know maybe who you're actually going to have on the day of the event. So you want to ask those questions. That's a good question to ask for sure.
Well, wait, let's dig a little bit deeper into that, because there's something we always talk about when you're booking somebody. Your DJ, your wedding planner, your photographer, your videographer, they're in your space for the most of the day. I mean, I know you always say not all DJs are, but I like to believe that the DJs are in the bride and the couple's
not
bubble.
Like you.
Maybe not like me, but I know there are DJs out there that interact a lot with the couple. Your bartender, a little bit, your caterer, a little bit, your florist, your cake baker, they're not there. You're not even going to see them. There's a good chance. Your decor,
unless
you may
they
not
drop
see them.
off they drop off the flowers to the bride usually.
Right.
And
but when you're
like
at a wedding fair, let's say, and you're going around and you're meeting people, if the lady that bakes the cake is a Karen and she's mean and she's like, right, you don't want to do this. And I'm like, if the cake tastes good, that's great. That's what you're going for. The cake looks good and it tastes good. But if your wedding planner is like that, that's different.
It's very different.
They are going to be in your bubble for 48 hours from the day before, not to mention the 6-8 months beforehand.
Right.
So that's somebody where the personality is a thing, I think, right? There's somebody you really mesh with, somebody that shares your vision, shares your approach to this whole thing, as opposed to somebody who's really abrasive and just going against the grain with you and your fiance. So those are different interactions you're going to have in the wedding fair environment, right?
Right. And that's, again, the advantage of going to these is that you get to meet the people and vibe with them. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between, so we've talked about a wedding fair. It's, the bigger events, they're held at like a convention center or a venue sometimes. You will have 50 vendors there, right? That's a lot of people and hundreds of brides. So that's what a wedding fair looks like.
Wait, I got one more thing before we move on.
Oh, okay.
So I was kind of getting toward this thing. We talked a little bit about booking a DJ. But the photographers, like I said, they'll have books out oftentimes. You'll get to see their work because they have a style as well, right? Photographers have a look. Sometimes they have a I don't know, it's hard to describe.
Style.
But they do. They have a style. And the decor people and the planners, they absolutely have a style too, right? Because you want to walk in, and maybe it's just what they decided to go with. Maybe they went with a rustic look for their wedding fair. But they'll have usually books out too, portfolios, pictures they can see from other stuff. But you'll talk to them too, like, hey, we're looking more for urban, or we're looking more for.
I'm really trying to figure out where you're going with this.
I'm saying, like, what's the advantage of going to these things is you'll see someone's style.
Sure.
Like a wedding planner, you'll see their style. And the venues are there as well.
Yes.
And the venues will have pictures of their venue. You can ask them questions like, can we get married on site? Do you have a chapel? Does my DJ need to plug into your system, or do they need to bring their whole system? Do you have multiple wedding sites? What's your capacity? Because that's another massive question. When you go into this thing, you're going to want to know your date, but you're going to have a rough idea of your guest count too, because different venues will be able to cater to. If you come in saying we have a 500 guest count, you're going to be, half the venues are already going to be off limits because they don't have that kind of capacity. And then the caterers are going to ask that question too. Photographers, DJs, we don't care if there's 50 or 250.
Sure.
Right? So you're going to have different conversations with different people about different aspects of your day or your vision. But that's another really benefit is you get to see their style. Because there were 10 wedding planners there, and not counting us, and decor people. And you walk up and they just you'll stop and look and be like, huh, yeah, I want to talk to these guys. Or you walk by and go, oh my God, in a million years, that's like bride repellent right there, what they put out. But it's not your style.
Vibe. Yeah, it's what you envision. And that's what you do in these things. You buy the booth, right? We have all our setup stuff because we're trying to show an example of what we do as a business. And we want to attract the type of couples that will be a good fit for our style of business and, what we do as a company.
Because, man, you couples out there, we'll have 3 conversations and all 3 of them will be just light years away from different people
Mhm.
because everybody's vision is, we said all the time on the podcast, if you listen, right? It's your day, you have your own look, you have your own feel, you have your own music taste, you have your own food taste. Everything is so different. And that's the really benefit of going to the wedding fair, because you're going to see a vast variety of people's approaches to the wedding thing. And it's really great.
But speaking of being different, right? So
you talking about me? I'm different. I'm very proud of my differences. Thank you.
The difference between a wedding fair, like we were just talking about, and an open house. So in this same time of year, and actually they happen throughout the year, but in
Sundays,
this time
very
of year,
often on Sundays,
right? The venues that we're talking about, the professional wedding venues, a lot of times will host open houses. And these are a really great opportunity as well, a little bit different, because if you're on their preferred vendor list, which what that means is you are,
not you.
As a vendor, you are selected by the venue to be one of the vendors that they would prefer their clients use. And so they'll invite all of those vendors, their preferred planners, their preferred caterers, their preferred bakers, to come and showcase their skills. So it's a little bit smaller, a little bit more low key. Sometimes they'll only have one person from each category represented. So you really only get to see one planner, one DJ, one florist. It's a little more just casual and not as high energy. There's no usually announcer hype music.
That's true. It's definitely not as
like
loud
a convention.
Yeah.
So this can be a really good opportunity, especially if you're really, you've decided on the venue and you trust the people there. You have maybe one vendor left to look at, and the people on the list, you can go and meet them in person.
We all have our favorites, if you will, or our preferred vendors, or we enjoy working with, that we know are
that we trust,
legit, that we trust. And you will see that too, because once you trust one of your vendors, usually it's the venue, right? Oftentimes the venue, and that's why they have a preferred vendor list. You can ask them every time, like, who's your preferred people? Because we have 2. We're still looking for 4 other categories. They will have a list, but so do we. The planner will have people they like working with. DJs have people, photographers.
Right.
Like, I'm still looking for a cake lady. Like, oh, you got to meet Sally, whatever. And then she may be there, and you can say, go down, turn left, 3 booths down, or they just have their contact, or you can search for them. But the other thing about the open house that you didn't mention was people pay for the booths at the wedding fairs. The open house, you're invited. There are ones that they'll ask you to pay as a vendor, but rarely.
But not often.
We are invited there almost like as you're on the inner circle.
Yes.
So it's less pressure on us to attack you as you walk by, like, she's wearing the bride sash. Get her,
No.
Get her. And you're like trying to take the sash off.
Someone.
People are attacking me. Give it to the maid of honor. She's mean. She can say, I'm not even the bride. Like, oh, now I got to guess who's the bride. Right?
Yeah, well,
but it's just a different approach. It's a whole different feel. It's a different vibe. You're at the venue itself. And if you're booked there, which is usually what happens, we have one coming up at it's a very popular venue in town. They have a big open house. They have several people from each category, but I can actually talk about. So if you're getting married in there, what happens is people spill out here to the cocktail hour. I usually put a speaker right here. It's just different when you're on the grounds and you can discuss it, as opposed to, oh, have you seen this venue? Have you seen that venue? You're describing it to the people who don't have a venue yet.
Yes.
Because people are at different phases of the planning process.
No, and it's just a great way to, especially like I said, if you met the owners of the venue or the event manager there and you trust them, you've talked about, the parts of the wedding you're still planning, you can go and attend one of their open houses and speak directly to their preferred vendors. And it's just a good opportunity for everyone. And you'll get those same ideas, right? So we were talking about the wedding fair, you get a lot of ideas. The vendors at the open houses still showcase a booth, right? We bring our setup.
That part of it is absolutely comparable.
Absolutely.
Comparable, for sure. But it's different too, because you get, how do you say it nicely? You've really, the pros, the full-time people are the ones you're going to usually see.
It does tend to be a little bit more so.
A little bit of an upper echelon, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word or not.
Well, the reason is you can't
established. There's people that are the vendors are more established for the most part.
But you can't pay to go to an open house, usually, right? As a vendor. So I could start a business tomorrow and pay to go to a wedding fair and have no equipment or experience. And it wouldn't matter because I'm just booking that space.
Yeah.
So the thing is, you can still get a gauge that from a lot of other resources, reviews, websites, referrals from other vendors. So there's ways to make sure you're vetting the company that you're interested in. And not to say that someone who's just starting out isn't going to be good or, isn't going to be the next big company, right? Because maybe you've landed and found a gem. But
well, that's how, we got to Texas. We had all the experience coming out of California, but nobody knew us here. So our price point was
way lower.
Half. It was way low. It was just me. Like it was just me. And I was like, and they were like, you seem like, what is your price point? I'm like, I'm new. Nobody knows me here. So it was kind of like, it was pretty quick until we
changed that
a comma in the price.
But that was, kind of the way you get going, right?
Sure.
You get your foot in the door, you meet people, you show them, because in the wedding world, the best way for other vendors and venues to recommend you is to work a wedding together.
Mm-hmm.
It is very hard for, especially myself as a planner, for me to recommend someone if I haven't worked a wedding with them. And
because you're putting your name with them at that point, right?
Absolutely. So that's my
what if
seal
they drop
of
the ball
approval.
Or screw something up. Yeah.
Right. So then after the wedding, can you imagine the bride comes to me and says, you told me to book this DJ and they were terrible, right? That is on me partially. So that is something just maybe you couples out there are interested in knowing, that we really try to work with the people that we recommend. And the venues, it's the same thing. But it can be hard because if you're new, how long does it take for you to work with several different vendors to get in good and prove your worth, right? That's a challenge.
And there's one other wild card that's kind of hard to put your finger on, but if you are interacting with them and you're there in person, because this is the real benefit of the open houses or the wedding fairs, is the person you're hiring for your wedding day still passionate? Are they still in it? Do they still enjoy what they do?
True.
Because there are people in this industry, like every industry,
right? This is not unique to weddings.
That are calloused, right? They're over it. They're burnt out, right? They're ready to be done, but they haven't pulled the plug yet. They're still there, and you're not getting anything from them. They've got great reviews. They've been doing it 10 years. People are referring you to them. Maybe they just had a bad day. Like for me, we were, believe it or not, bickering a little bit because I was tired the morning of. We didn't have anything to eat, and I'm like hungry, and I'm like, it's a long day.
Blaming me.
but I was just like, we don't have. And I was looking out for YouTube, and she will get hangry in a minute. We got to repost that TikTok on Instagram. That was a great one.
The hangry TikTok.
The hangry TikTok.
It is true though. I get really hangry.
Yeah. So I was like concerned, like we're going into this thing. We were on time, but it was just a thing. So maybe I interacted with the first couple, and they were like, this guy is kind of a dud. And I'm like, maybe I was just having a bad space. But if I'm nothing else, I am passionate about what I do, right? So
truth.
I made a mom cry.
Yes, you did yesterday at the wedding fair. The mom
not like I didn't
crying.
slap her or anything. I'm just saying, like, I was talking to the bride, and I was just talking about the bride entrance, and that's been kind of a thing that we feel like the whole bride entrance and picking the right song
and the right moment of the right song,
and not racing to the altar. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, like I'll say, like, here's a beautiful song, and I'll do videos on it and TikToks and Instagram where I'm like, open the doors right here, 30 seconds in, but don't race down the aisle, pause, let the song build to that moment. And I was explaining it. And the mom of the bride, who was going to be walking our bride, because it was her mom, his mom, and the bride were there. That was the three people, because this is very common to have at the wedding fairs too, for us to have. And I saw her tearing up, and I said, don't start, because then I started. Because
he teared up with the mom. So they were we had a moment. We had a moment at the wedding fair.
I'm guessing we're going to be hearing from them.
I guess we might, because it's genuine. That's the other thing, is that it's not an act. It is, we care that much. And there are a lot of vendors out there that feel that way, that they really want your day to go better than you had imagined. And they will break their back to make sure that happens.
Absolutely. Because even like there's days where I am on, let's say, my third wedding, right? It's a Sunday. I had a Friday wedding. I had a Saturday wedding. I'm a Sunday wedding.
We try not to do that as much anymore.
We try to do that as much. But it happens. There have been times where somebody's like, we really wanted you, you're the DJ. I'm like, and then I start going like, okay, I'll do it because I want to be part of your day. We started to bond. I really like the two of you. I'm like, okay, you got me. But then I'm 3 weddings deep. And like I said, I leave it all on the floor. I pour all my energy into each wedding. And just because you're the third one on the weekend doesn't mean that you deserve me being like, y'all ready to bring out the bride? Nobody wants that DJ, right?
No.
So I always am prepared with Gatorades and Red Bulls, and once I get in the mode,
stimulants.
Once I'm there and the guests start arriving and I start interacting, my adrenaline kicks in, and even 3 deep, I'm gonna bring the same energy that I did for my first wedding. But not everybody's wired like me.
No.
And even then, like if you're the third wedding, as the wedding vendor. Oh, geez. Okay. Well, on my third wedding of the weekend. Who cares? It's y'all's only wedding, right?
Right.
And that is the mentality you have to have ideally for your vendors. Like they may, in October, we are all working our fingers to the bone, right? Like it is a busy month. And if you're at the end of October, beginning of November, your vendors might be a little bit like in the middle of this crazy phase of the wedding season.
Here in Texas, anyways.
But who cares? It's it is your only wedding day. And that is the mentality that I always take into it, that you always take into it, that our team takes into it. And ideally, your whole vendor team will take into it.
Absolutely. So that's something you can learn if you go to these fairs or open houses. That's kind of why we wanted to chat about it today, because it's wedding season and you guys are going to have an opportunity to go out and meet vendors and talk to them and ask these questions and get those feelings from the people that you might be working with for your wedding. I do want to mention a few things. If you want to know more about us, you can go to theweddingduo.co. We offer virtual one-on-one planning. We have a shop that has some downloadable, helpful pieces like our music planner and our wedding planning bundle. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram. You can watch these episodes on YouTube. We've got a few other fun episodes there.
You can see our matchy shirts.
You can see our matchy shirts today and no makeup. But we will end this podcast the way we end every podcast.
But real quick, one other thing. How else can you, other than meeting the person, if they have a social media presence, you're going to see their passion there. Reviews are always great.
I mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah, and you can go to their website because again, you'll see how much their experience level and the websites, man. There's a lot you can tell from a website where you're like, oh, this is a great website, or like, wow, $19.95 much do you with that website? But because it's an investment. How much are they investing financially in their business? That is usually as part of it, right? I mean, as opposed to your weekend warrior, which again, they could be great, but
right. So let's try that again.
We'll end it. We'll try to end it again. I never like to end it.
I know you don't like to end the podcast.
It's a very personal day.
He wants to go on and on.
I do, but it's a very personal day, like we were saying. So we always say, don't let somebody talk you into something you don't want to do, or talk you out of something you have your heart set on. Put the blinders on, talk to your fiance, and the two of you kind of should be the ultimate decision makers. Absolutely. So happy wedding planning, y'all. We'll see you next time. End it with our kiss. Mwah. Bye. Bye. Hey, so thanks for listening to our podcast. If you found any of this information helpful and you know someone who may be engaged or is a maid of honor, maybe you could tell them and share it with a friend. Absolutely. So screenshot this episode, share it on Instagram, on Facebook, and tag The Wedding Duo. We promise to share the love back. Also, if you are interested in more resources or the show notes, you can go to theweddingduo.co. We have one-on-one virtual sessions, a shop, all sorts of fun stuff. Check it out.